Hey Ian, how are you?
How's it going? I'm doing well, Axel. How are you?
Where are you now?
I'm at home in up in Vermont, my new home. My wife and I moved here a couple years ago, so we're I'm actually looking at some baby chicks we have inside right now. So
That's
yeah,
awesome. That's awesome. Well, good to catch up, and thank you for doing that with us. It's very appreciative
yeah, no
from
problem.
all of us. It's been a while since we caught up, and just wanted to regroup with you and have a chat with me so we can discuss a little bit the history of the team. And obviously, you won one of the first years. I don't want to age you too much, but
Yeah.
I just, just to catch up a little bit and just see and then just share your thoughts and your ideas about the team, the mentality of the team, the spirit of the team, the team brought to you, and what it still bring to you as an alumni, and how do you look at the team right now? So I guess we'll just start with the beginning. Like what was your first impression when you got contact from the team? What did you hear the first time with the team? What was the first impression you had?
Well, I think I definitely knew about the team long before I was able to be on the team. Trying to remember what year the team started. Was it 2009?
Yeah.
That the first year? Yeah. So I was a last year junior in 2009. So I'd already had my eye on trying to come to the team. And I think most of the riders at the time were, the biggest names in the U.S. Finney was there, Ben King. I mean, you had a lot of, Aussies and Brits as well at that time. So I knew about the team. I wanted to obviously get on that team, but I think by the time I had any good results as a junior, I think your team was already full. The riders you had taken, I think at that point you had mainly kind of older riders. So I actually went to signed a contract with Bissell Pro Cycling not against my will because I had a good time there, but I guess another team that I was supposed to go to canceled. And kind of in haste, I got $100 a month from Bissell Pro Cycling, signed my first pro contract.
Wow.
And then I remember I went home and you had sent me an email, something along the lines of, "Hey, Ian, I think we have another spot on the team for you if you want to ride for us." And I was just kicking myself because I just FedExed my contract to Bissell, and I didn't want to go against the contract, so I didn't ride with the team my first year as under 23. But I think we were already in talks by mid-season about coming to the year, and then I think at Tour of Utah that year, we kind of finalized things and knew the future of my under 23 career was with you guys.
Did you have? I'm always curious about because that was far before my time. I've been around for like 3 or 4 years now, so I'm always curious of the differences. Did you feel like you were nervous about coming? Because you mentioned a few of those, the Ben King type folks, Finney. Uh, were you nervous? Were you more excited? A little bit of both. What was the?
Axel would probably remember my first year on the team. So the year that I had at Bissell, I had a really good second half of the year. I did well at Utah, and so I kind of came to the team in 2011. And I because the older group had kind of aged out, the likes of
Right,
Ben
right.
King and Finney, they had gone professional in 20 between 2010 2011. So when I came to the team, I definitely thought I was pretty hot shit, and Axel probably remembers this. Um, we had a bunch of really good riders on the team that year, but I remember I was on like, I think Axel and I were both like, we had a pic, maybe it was just me on the cover, but there's some pictures in, I think a magazine called, was it Road
Road,
Cycling?
yeah, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And I thought I was like hot shit. I was like, oh, like at training camp, I was out of shape. But I kept thinking like, oh, I was like the best young rider at Tour Utah last year. Like I know what I'm doing. I don't need to work as hard as these guys. And that was kind of the first time that I was in a team where we trained hard together. So we had that year, we had Lawson, Nate, Gavin, George Bennett, Josh Adkins, Dale Parker. We had a really good team.
Right.
And like, I just remember walking into that camp thinking I was, going to light the world on fire again. And I guess Dombrowski was on the team that year as
Yeah,
well. And
yeah,
turned out that, yeah, I did not have a very good year, but the next year I kind of got things together.
yeah. It was funny to you. I actually remember seeing you at training camp the first time, and I don't want to put like words into your mouth, but when you saw me first time, you first thing you told me is like, I'm gonna lose the weight pretty fast. Don't worry about it. It's gonna come off really fast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
it's
I think
funny.
I think that I was rooming with Joe that year as well. And he had had a pretty good year the year before, but was kind of like an unknown really name in the US at the time. And I was rooming with him, and he was like very naive, but very determined and very focused. And, you know, he was skinny as he ever was. And I just remember thinking like, oh, he doesn't know what he's doing. Like, I've been doing this longer than him, but yeah, he clearly found his way.
Was it like you joining the team then? Was it like how a lot of the riders are now, to where they had raced each other, you know, juniors or early U23, so they knew, they pretty much were friends, you know, competed on USA junior teams? Was it similar then? Were you friendly or knew the guys when you joined?
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, especially the kind of I wouldn't say the core group, but, you know, Lawson, myself, Nate, and Gavin all raced together on hot tubes when we were juniors. So we knew each other really well. And then, you know, I wasn't as familiar with the Aussies and Kiwis on the team. And I guess maybe the Ekman wasn't on the team that year, but yeah, so I knew the core group of guys really well. And the Aussies we had on the team were awesome guys. And I guess Joe Lewis was on the team that year as well. So just a good group of people that, you know, we all got on from the onset.
So was it anything, you know, like, I don't know if you asked the guys before you came to the team about the team or anything like that, but is there anything that stood out? Or was it like what you expected it would be, or was it something different? Was it, you know, like what you anticipated, or was it totally different?
For me, I think it was more, I didn't expect it was going to be as good as it was. You know, I think with the success of the first couple of years of riders, then all of a sudden we got invited to bigger races. And, you know, from the beginning, the team had a name behind it. But I think looking back, you know, our year, you just graduated all these riders to the World Tour, you know, Ben King, Finney, Jesse Sargent, you know, so my generation, then we saw, you know, I think my group of riders was like the first group of kids that maybe we didn't have like a free pass to the World Tour, but I kind of felt like this reputation developed quickly that if you're on Axel's team and you have some decent results, then, you know, it's like, it was the quickest way to move up the rankings. So yeah, thank you for that, because it was made easier by your reputation and the reputation of the team.
Yeah, no, I remember the 2010 Tour of Utah when you were flying up there at the climbs. I was happy for you, because I knew, because you signed a contract right before the Tour of Utah. You know, I made sure that you signed a contract before that. And then you did that great result in Tour of Utah. So I was really excited about it, and I knew you had a great potential. So it was fun to see. Nobody knew about it except me, so that was really cool.
Yeah. Well, maybe the following season, maybe that's why I was off to a slow start, because I was hanging out with Lawson and Gavin and Nate too much.
Yeah, that probably could be a part of the reason. But I think, to me, from my perspective at that point, you know, we had a great start, and when I was asked to start a team and stuff like that, right away I got offered Taylor, and Taylor was the name and the athlete of the team, and it was like a home run out of the ballpark right away, you know, because everybody knew how good he was. But your generation, from my perspective, is where it actually really started, more of the development side, and it was really more about my reaching out and finding out, you know, who could form a really solid team. And Toby at Hot Tubes back then, and still now, did a really good job with the juniors, and I could feel that mentality was there. So it was really excited to have you guys on the team. So it was a good start for me. It's kind of the first step towards where the team is today. So, but when you look back at it, you know, like you know, as development goes on, you know, we all make mistakes. We all you know, have some things that we can improve over the years. Is it something that you think about the team back then? It's like, oh, I wish it was a little bit different like that, or was it? Would you change something basically back in those days, looking back?
You know, I guess one thing. Yeah, maybe the one thing I would have changed would be racing in Europe together more as a team. I think just with my schedule at that time, we also raced a lot with the national team. So I did a lot of racing in Europe, and there was a good relationship between Action and the national team. So it was, you know, we could split time. But I think the only race I did in Europe with the team was maybe Liège-Bastogne-Liège in 2012. But I think that was just because, you know, by that time we got into Tour of California. So we were doing that, and there was all the big US races. You know, so we had plenty of racing in, but you kind of build such a good relationship with the riders that, if anything could have, I guess there's, races that happened, years that I was on the team and wasn't. And, part of those were my choices to go to races with the national team over Action. But yeah, just spending more time with the team because it was such a close knit environment.
Yeah, we had. I mean, obviously budgets are different and times are different also. And USC Cycling back then was racing a lot in Europe, so there was kind of like cost effectiveness. But yeah, I mean, the relay that I've had and I've heard from you guys, your generation, that's what comes back all the time, and that's why we try to, further years past you, beyond you, we try to improve that and make it more and more, and that's what we are doing right now. So what? How was, to me, was like, how was the transition between, like when you come from the junior ranking and you went on Bissell and then you spend 2 years with us and then all of a sudden, boom, you got a big contract, you're on the biggest team of the world, you signed with Sky. How did that feel compared to where you were, and how did you move on to that team? What's your feeling there?
Yeah, well, like I said, in 2012, I had a much better season with you. Again, had a good ride. Both Joe and I had a good ride at Utah and Tour de l'Avenir and whatnot. I think we had a good time at Cascade Cycling Classic as well. Won a bunch of Stuyven, won the mountaintop finish. So I had a good year, and the whole team had a really good year that year. So, I started getting offers mid-season, and I think I had actually strong-armed you into I wanted a stagiaire with Argos.
Yeah.
So I did a stagiaire. You negotiated that with the people you knew over there. So I did a stagiaire, just as like knowing that it'd be a good ticket to get on that team. But as my results kept, kind of getting noticed, internationally, that I got a call from Sky to go to, at the time, maybe still the biggest and best team in the world. And yeah, that was an opportunity that I couldn't turn down. And, it was, it's a big step. I think you probably know from a lot of your riders, it's a big step going from, especially for the North American guys who are, moving their life over to Europe, is probably a bigger transition than just the step up in racing. But yeah, it was really a dream come true to go from, kind of, when I look at it, I was fortunate. I kind of hit the best teams in every generation. I went from hot tubes to, Action to Team Sky. It's like, it doesn't get much more premier than that. So yeah, a lot of hard work, but lucky in a way that all those teams were there kind of along my way.
Did you feel like going from Action to Sky was a big change? Like, was it an exponentially larger change than from hot tubes to Action? Did you feel like it was abrupt? Did you feel like it was just, like a natural continuation, races, you're going to be racing more, harder, longer, or?
I think on many fronts it was hard, just because like the change from, living in the US predominantly to moving overseas, and the training, and one thing that I've noticed with under 23 riders now, and I was over in Nice this spring and spoke to, oh goodness, who's the rider who lives down near Joe, from Virginia?
Eddie.
Eddie. Yeah, Eddie.
Anderson,
Yes,
yeah.
I had dinner with Eddie.
Yeah.
And just noticing how much more prepared the riders are today than, kind of my generation, just as far as knowing what to expect with training. And he was over in Europe, trying to move there to get ready for, the next step of his life. And, Will Barta was my roommate in Nice for 2.5 years. And he moved over as under 23 rider just because he knew that the transition was hard. So if he could make that as soon as possible,
right,
it would be more comfortable. And, it was a real pleasure to live with Will, because he was probably the best roommate you could ask for. He's super clean and organized and polite. And I think, Axel probably knows and could attest to this, that as, the teams evolved, riders have become more prepared, just going to that next level. And that's one of the benefits of, having a program like this, where you have alumni that are still connected to the program, is that you can kind of start to feed that information back. Like, hey, here's what we're doing in the World Tour for training now. You guys don't need to be doing that, but, here's what they need to kind of keep their eye on for the future.
Yeah, and I always say that, the team was never really created. Well, it was created around the idea of Taylor Finney, but the team became as big and as successful, I think, because of you guys. All the input that you guys have, and I think one of the the key elements of this team is that, you know, the relationship that we've built over the years, and you look at it this way also, that, you know, I want to make sure that the riders felt that it was not only necessarily my team or Lance's team or whoever's team it is. It was more your team because it's something that you build onto it, and then you help the next generation, and you advise them, or you try to. I mean, I know a conversation that I had with you, Ian, about, you know, recruiting. You know, that was one of the key elements back then. It's like, you know, recruiting right now is much different than it was back then, especially in the early age of the team. You know, like I had to go look for athletes to almost persuade them in a way to come to the program, especially the first year. Because they were like, well, here's the guy that, you know, was never director in his life. Yeah, I had a big name behind me, but it doesn't mean that it's a successful story. Now it's still a different thing. You know, now juniors are going, you know, some are going straight to the world tour. You know, don't even need the U23 anymore. And some are just have agents that are actually recruiting for them and looking for teams already. So, you know, I hope you guys have that feeling. And is there something that for example, now, I mean, you're in different transition in your life right now. I mean, you kind of moved from the road to the gravel road, you know, like, would you consider yourself as an athlete to I mean, saying as a retirement, would you do something similar like that? Can you see that yourself in a role like that? Is it something that interests you, or I would say inspired, because inspired is a big word, but is it something that you think it would be a cool thing to do?
Yeah, to be like a director.
Not necessarily a director. Yeah, I mean a director, but you could be working for a development team or being around a program like that, or even, you know, on the world tour level, something like that, or something, you know, you have different aspirations.
Yeah, definitely. It was definitely something I considered, and something I still do consider, you know, because I do love, I mean, probably you felt a similar way when you retired, is like you have all this wealth of knowledge, and, you know, you essentially have like a PhD in cycling, but it's only applicable to cycling. I mean, you learn like self-management and stuff, but, you know, you have so much knowledge in this one area. It's almost a waste to not kind of pass that on to the next generation. So I'm just waiting for you or Toby to get old and tired of your job so I can take over. I got to be patient.
Yeah. No, it's always good to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something I've considered, and, you know, even, you know, I coach a couple of juniors, and that's always fun to, you know, kind of help them along. And, you know, you've probably seen the transition. It's a balance, especially now with like social media. Kids have such easy access to see what the pros are doing, so they think they need to do it. And I'm sure you have constant reminders to your athletes that, like, hey, like, you need to focus on what you're doing, not what everyone else is doing. Because like you said, now with kids turning pro at 19, you know, all of a sudden the 18-year-old thinks he needs to do the same thing because that's what he's doing next year. And it's, it can be dangerous to overdo
and
it.
as you know, everybody's development is different. Some are faster than others, and sometimes, you know, you might be physically developed, but then the emotional part of it is a very big aspect of the development also, which is very important. I think one of the area that I think there's still lots of work to do, and actually also in the development side of things, is like, you know, like how to prepare mentally and emotionally, and the mental health of the athlete, you know, because as you know, when everything goes right, you don't need me, you don't need anybody, you just, you know, everything is going fine. It's just like, how can you manage and prepare people, you know, on the mental side of things when things are going down. And I know, you know, like I've had athletes in the team that, you know, went through hard times and up and down, and you can help them and support. But do you see an area or something like in that matter that a team like ours can maybe manage it a little bit better?
You know, I think mental health in sport is like a big issue. Not an issue, it's a big topic, and something that, you know, I think a lot of athletes could address, whether things are going good or bad. It's, you know, it's one thing that I never did over my career, is work with like a sports psychiatrist or, you know, psychologist, just to, you know, be more confident, more positive. It's something that some athletes naturally have. Some, you know, constantly live in fear. But I think, you know, the biggest thing that this team has is the network of riders, you know, to pass on that information. And, you know, because there's so many riders at such close ages, but at far ages as well, you know, for two riders to be friends, one to go to the world tour and the next one's on your team for another year, they're still in contact, staying in touch. So I think that, you know, continuing those relationships just through the ages is the most important thing for the team to continue doing.
Was there some kind of pressure that you felt a little bit coming from the team? To have, I feel sometimes that, and that's my fear when some new guys come to the team, and you're part of it. You have all those alumni that went to huge teams and had great results, and the numbers are there. But I mean, we start from a blank page every year. I mean, that's just the way it is,
Yeah.
which is fine. But my biggest fear most of the time is that those 18, 19-year-old kids, when they come to the team and they look at it and they want to be performing, they want to be good, and is that a feeling that you've had, that you have that pressure, or is it something that has been managed pretty well?
Despite coming into the team, like I said earlier, I don't want to contradict myself, with a little bit of arrogance, and maybe not performing that first year. I think more than pressure from the team, I think I felt like proud to be on the team and to
Okay.
Especially, I mean, at that time and still today, when you wear that jersey, it's, similar to, how I kind of feel about wearing the Hot Tubes jersey. It's like, it's a legacy, and you're not just representing yourself and your group, but you're representing the whole team. And, for myself to admire the team, the year when I wasn't on it, and then to be able to go to the team, I knew how lucky I was, and just the, connections we had. I think both years, I had my 21st birthday at Lance Armstrong's house. Like, that was a childhood. My first legal beer was at Lance's house. We were in Texas for training camp, and it was my birthday, and he's like, "Oh, why doesn't the team come over and we'll have a little birthday party?" So I think, it's just, I mean, it's cool to think back on memories like that, because it was such a good time. And it's kind of get nostalgic thinking back to it, how nice it was.
Yeah, I mean, we've tried to create that. We want to do things professionally, but we do acknowledge also that you guys are still young, and you basically only. I mean, I met your mom. I've been. I've met your family. I've been around, and that's relationship is very valuable, but it's like a family away from family, because as that age, especially when you start traveling, it must be a lot of challenges and stuff like that. So there's still lots of work to be done on that matter. But I mean, it's good to hear that at least you didn't feel like you had that big burden or that big pressure.
No, and I think kind of like back to that. I think I felt proud, and I think everyone who joins the team knows that they have a huge opportunity to, go to the next level. So it's not pressure externally, it's pressure internally, knowing that, hey, this is a huge opportunity, and I, if I'm going to take that next step and reach my dream of going to the world tour, then, this is the moment. So it's, a positive pressure, but I don't think anyone on the team should fear that. It should be a positive, influence to see the legacy of that team.
Yeah.
What was the, speaking about, or talking about pressure, what was the pressure like that you felt when you got to Sky? And if it was a lot, or however it was, how did you deal with it or manage it? What was it like?
Axel knows as well. He was a domestique. There's pressure as a domestique, but there's a lot less pressure than the guys who have to race in the last, 10, 20K of a race.
Right.
But again, I don't think it was necessarily, pressure and stress. I think it was more just having expectations of myself. And I think any professional athlete, or, any athlete at a high level, sets internal expectations of what they want to achieve. Right. And, they manage that stress just through kind of expectations of what they expect of themselves.
So where are you at today? Considering, the whole, global pandemic that we're going through, and how are you managing where, your daily life, and are you able to set yourself a goal moving forward, and with all the uncertainties that you're on, where are you at?
Yeah. So I'm, working with Wahoo now. So be careful, Axel. We sponsor your team. So yeah, I have a full-time job with Wahoo, which is great. So I'm like an athlete and brand liaison for a bunch of athletes. Not yet. They haven't given me your team yet, Axel, to manage that negotiation and partnership. But yeah, I'm also doing a podcast. So I'm, definitely transitioning into kind of a work life, but still riding. And because all the gravel events I had planned to attend this year have been postponed or delayed, I'm in the process of trying to set a new goal that I can do here personally, whether it's, go for a KOM on a climb or something to keep me kind of moving forward. I love riding my bike, but I still have like an urge to be fast at riding my bike. So something to keep me working forward and kind of staying positive to build towards a goal.
Cool. Well, this, I mean, as you know, I mean, I told you before we started recording that, you know, you were the first one. We wanted to find somebody that, you know, had a little bit of experience already doing those kind of things, and with your podcast, which I listened to, and that thing, I think you did a very good job. It's lots of fun to do. So good job on that. I mean, you know, in time we've been in touch. It's been always a pleasure to catch up with you. If there is one thing that, looking back, or one advice that you want to give a young rider that is in the US or anywhere in the world, you know, that is starting riding a bike, you know, what your best advice would be?
Oh, for anyone racing, I would say that, you know, it kind of sounds cliche, but I would say to like really like reach for your goals. And, you know, I never thought I would have started off racing my neighbors around the block to go into the Tour de France. And, you know, it is achievable if you know, get out there and work towards it. And it takes a lot of sacrifice, and it's not easy, but, you know, really maximize that time you have. 'Cause, you know, it's pretty short lived that you can live the lifestyle of a professional athlete. So enjoy it.
Nice.
One last thing.
Cool. Yeah.
I just thought of this. Gravel aero bars, should they be allowed? Yes or no?
No.
Okay, there you have it. That's it. Sign off time. I had to know. I had to ask.
Cool.
No. I hate time trial bikes.
I agree. I would put it on mine. Not that I have a gravel bike yet, which probably will have to try it one day. Maybe you should come and explore. We talked a little bit at the beginning of the year here in the mountains, local mountains here, about some gravel riding, but just an aero bike on there, I wouldn't be suggesting it anyways. I wouldn't be suggesting training it on the road anyways. But anyways, Ian, I really appreciate you coming on board and doing this for us. This is very much appreciated. And like I say, you know, stay in touch. You know, anything you need from us, is there anything we can do to help you out? Just reach out, and I can't wait for your email about Wahoo moving forward and all the deals we can make together.
Yeah. Right. Well, likewise. Yeah. Thank you, Axel. Thank you, Chad.
Thanks, Ian.
Take care.
Take care.
Right, see you guys.
Alrighty.